So tell me about where you were born and your early childhood.
I was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, on the 12th of December 1937, second child of Alice and Tommy Service at 103 Portales Street. Or did I just say that?
No? 103.
103 Portales Street, Belfast. The house isn't there anymore because they did a whole redevelopment thing and built new flats and maisonettes and all, so I knocked that bit down, so I can't see the house. Yeah, it was a 4-bedroom terrace house, 4 bedrooms, but no garden. It had a yard at the back.
And what are your core memories of early childhood?
Well, I had a big sister. She was 2.5 years older than me. So we would play together a lot. I can't really remember being very young. I can't remember anything from when I was really young. I can remember during the war we went to stay in Bangor because Belfast was being bombed. And that would have been 1941 because my brother was born where we were staying in Bangor. My brother Tom was born there. So that's probably why we got out of Belfast quick, because my mummy was pregnant. I also remember my daddy holding me in his arms and saying that, looking towards the night sky, which was all red, and saying, "That is Belfast burning." That must have been about 1941, because that was the bad bombing in Belfast, I think, when they really blitzed the place trying to get at the shipyard. And my memories are more of Bangor there, because I remember being evacuated from there down to the beach because they thought a bomb had fallen in the field next door to the house. And we had to go down. I don't remember going down the road to the beach, but I remember being on the beach.
Where were you staying in Bangor then?
Well, we always used to go and stay in this house in Bangor. It was a relation of Uncle Hugh's, and my mummy and daddy used to hire it for a month every year. In July every year we would go down and stay there. My daddy would come at weekends, and then he'd come when he was off for the 12th fortnight, they call it, when he was on holiday. He would be there, but the other weeks we would be there on our own. And then he would come down at the weekend.
So when you went there, when you sort of were going away from Belfast because of the bombings, what happened when you went to Bangor for schooling? Did you go to a different school there?
No. I don't think I was old enough to go to school, or not old enough. You see, I have an awful lot of memories of Bangor more than Belfast. I remember my Uncle Bobby and all being there with my cousin Brian. And there was bombing going on. And we were under the table. You know, in those big square wooden tables. We were under there. And Mrs. Russell, who owned the house, she was making us a piece, which in Ireland you got a piece that was a bit with bread and butter or jam on it. That's what a piece, it was you say, "Please can I have a piece," and that's what you get. And she brought the piece into me, well, all the others as well, and she gave me this piece. And I started to cry. And I said, this is one of the sayings of the family for years. And I said, "Somebody licked the jam of my piece," because my mum used to put loads of jam on for it. And Mrs. Russell just kind of scraped it on. And I thought somebody had licked the jam of my piece. And that was, so you get all this at the time. This was a saying, "Oh, somebody licked the jam of her piece," Yeah.
And then, so eventually, obviously, after the war ended, you went back to Belfast.
I don't think we stayed there that long. I think it was just
Oh.
during the bombing.
Oh, I see.
I went back to Belfast and I went to school at Mount Pottinger Public Elementary School. We had to walk about half a mile to get there. There was a school at the corner of our road, Euston Street, but we were sent to Mount Pottinger because my mum and all her brothers and sisters had been there. So we were sent to Mount Pottinger. So we kind of split a bit from the local kids and everything because we went to Mount Pottinger, you know, instead of just going into the school with them. Yeah, but said about going away, we always had a month's holiday in the summer. We went to Bangor to Mr. and Mrs. Russell's house, and then I don't know whether that finished or whether we had a change, but the next thing we went to Ballywalter and stayed in Ballywalter, and we stayed on one of the houses. It was like a row of terraced houses, and just across the road there was a wall, and then that was the beach after over the wall. So we were just over from the beach, and lots of rocks in the beach, and I remember that. And Mrs. Now I've forgotten her name who had it, but she had 2 daughters. So we lived in part of the house, and they must have lived. There was no man there, so she had these 2 daughters. In fact, I've got a couple of photographs of them in the album at home. Somebody in Sheila, and I can't remember the other girl's name.
So your dad would come a bit. So where was your dad? Was away for the war?
No, my dad was working in the shipyard.
Oh.
My dad didn't join the army because in Northern Ireland, the shipyard was more important than going off to war because they were building the ships that they needed.
And that's what he was doing anyway, so he just stayed there.
Yes, yeah. So he didn't get sent off. So other people who weren't in the yard went off to war. But most of the men round our way all worked in the yard. So they were at home.
So do you think that's felt less different than it might have done for a lot of other people because lots of the men were still there?
Yeah, could have done. But in Northern Ireland, conscription wasn't mandatory.
Oh.
So you could go off if you wanted to.
Oh.
I know, it was quite funny. It was, even though it was in Great Britain, we had certain different things, you know.
And then what were your parents like as parents? Would you say they were? Yeah. What would you say they were like? Were they strict?
My mommy was strict, but my daddy was just my daddy. he didn't say much. He never said much. He never shouted at us, or we never had any smacks or anything like that, you know. He was just a quiet man, and must have been very good looking when he was young, but as children you don't think of that, do you? Get very black hair, kind of swept back. And my mummy was very good looking. She had very piercing blue eyes. She was one from a family of 9, and they all had these lovely blue eyes. But none of us got them. Like June has these hazel eyes, and I've got hazel eyes, and so have Roy and Tom and Roy. Because after me, Tom was born in 41 down in Bangor, and then when we got back to Belfast, 45, Roy was born in 45. But as a child, you don't notice the changing of the years and, you know, how long you were at different places. You just went with what. You just went where you were taken.
Yeah.
You know.
But did you, apart from the war, which was obviously scary, did you have a happy childhood?
You did, yeah. The only thing about thinking about the wartime, and we were in Belfast one night, don't know, but we had an iron shelter in the in the well, kitchen we called it. It was like the living room, and I don't know how it was called, an Anderson shelter, but it was like a big cast iron shelter, and there was like mattresses in it, or I don't know what kind of, but it was soft anyway to lie on, and we were in there. I remember June and I being in there, and the best china was in there as well for safety. And I remember one night that my daddy coming to the kitchen door and saying somewhere, something street has just been bombed. Walter Ground has been down and said there's bombs and they've gone, something has been bombed. And that's all I remember of that, because I was a child. I was in safe, you know, cozy, but I was in this thing, it was like a big table, you know, and you could get underneath to be protected from bombing. Yeah.
I'll just